Hello, my name is Tori Quaren, and today I'm going to be presenting on Save Buffalo Bayou, one of my favorite environmental organizations. There is so much to learn about Save Buffalo Bayou, I am simply not able to cover everything for this presentation's purpose. If you are interested in learning more, I encourage you to visit www.savebuffalobayou.org. This is where I have referenced all of my information for this presentation. All credit for information and images is due to SaveBuffaloBayou.com. Save Buffalo Bayou is a 501c3 nonprofit association. It was founded in 2014 to prevent the Harris County Flood District or anyone else from bulldozing the forested banks of Buffalo Bayou. They were planning to do just that with the support of the City of Houston and the Memorial Park Conservatory, despite several hundred critical comments opposing the project. Several months after the permit was issued, geologists working with Save Buffalo Bayou proved that the entire project, called the Memorial Park Demonstration Project, was based on a faulty analysis. The demonstration project was designed for lateral erosion caused by water flowing downstream parallel to the bank. Its proponents erroneously claimed that there was no vertical bank problem on Buffalo Bayou, and they were incorrect. This project would have failed, leaving behind a tragic and costly wasteland, and wasting millions of taxpayers' dollars. Save Buffalo Bayou's mission is to work with nature, not against it. The focus of their association is to spread awareness and understanding of how Buffalo Bayou benefits Houston as a whole entity. They also perform independent ecological and environmental research to help put a stop to government and private deforestation. The board has many members, including geologists, journalists, engineers, and legal counsel. I have known about this organization since I moved back to Houston in late 2015. But more specifically, I took a personal interest in Save Buffalo Bayou just this summer. I run a nonprofit family running club called the Houston Ankle Biters Hash House Harriers. We often run and hike through the natural areas that are along the Buffalo Bayou and other Houston bayous. Each year, we choose an organization that is important to our group, and we host a contribution kickball event to raise money for the cause. This year we chose the Save Buffalo Bayou Association. We had a great time playing kickball with families of all ages, and we even took an exploratory walk around the Memorial Park nature trails. We raised over $260 for Save Buffalo Bayou and had a great day of family fun. There is so much to learn about Buffalo Bayou. Most importantly, it is an integral part of Houston's history. It is also a central part of Houston's natural drainage system and water cycle. Buffalo Bayou is roughly 1,800 years old, and it is known as the Mother Bayou. Even though some sections have been stripped out for modern construction, most of the stream is unchannelized. The bayou is home to ancient high bluffs, natural forest, beavers, river otters, alligators, snapping turtles, and many other creatures. The bayous in Houston also have an important ecological function. Bayous are living, dynamic systems with a particular requirement for appropriate width and depth to remain stable. Trees and vegetation growing along the banks are necessary for protection against erosion, for cleansing the water, including our polluted water from rain. They're also good for reducing flooding and for shading and regulating the temperature of the stream. It's hard to tell by just taking a look or a swim, but Buffalo Bayou actually cleanses its water. In fact, the base flow in Buffalo Bayou is considered to be treated wastewater, which is likely cleaner than the polluted water running off our urban roofs, yards, and pavement. One of the biggest failed permits to bulldoze forested areas along the bayou was the Big Gulch project. This project is considered a failed natural channel design and it replaced a beautiful forest of large trees with mowed grass. In the permit language, it stated that trees falling into the creek was dangerous and impacting the amount of sediment being deposited in the bayou. Fallen trees are actually a good thing. They help stabilize the river, trap sediment, and provide food and habitat for wildlife. This is a picture of a kayak trip on the bayou. One of my personal friends and a Save Buffalo Bayou board member, geologist Tom Helm, runs a business of bayou exploration via kayak. I thought it was a pretty neat picture. Buffalo Bayou is also helpful for Houston flood control. There are 2 federal dams on the bayou's upper watershed in West Houston. They were built in the 1940s for flood control. Barker Reservoir and Addicks Reservoir are both dry reservoirs, built exclusively to control flooding downstream. Both federal dams drain into Buffalo Bayou and hold stormwater only temporarily to prevent the river from adding to dangerously high flows downstream. The floodgates are always open except when it rains, at least 1 inch downstream. And then the Corps of Engineers releases impounded stormwater from the reservoir pools. Unfortunately, Harris County Flood Control District continues to plan projects that are designed around controversial forest removal and excavation of basins where they are most needed for flood control along Buffalo Bayou. Here's an image that gives you an idea of where the bayou levels were on May 26, 2015 during the Memorial Day flood. The Port of Houston owns the submerged lands of Buffalo Bayou, and they have been the owner since 1927. Though, if you own property on a bayou and you want to install a retaining wall or have another bank stabilization project, you are required to get a permit from the Corps of Engineers. Furthermore, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality is responsible for certifying that any permits issued by the Corps for discharge or fill material complies with state law. This is a picture of an example of a failed retaining wall. The Clean Water Act is an important piece of statutory law when it comes to Buffalo Bayou. Under the Clean Water Act, the Corps of Engineers has the enforcement responsibility along with the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. The TCEQ is responsible for certifying that any permits issued by the Corps complies with state law. It's also important to know that in Texas, a navigatable stream is one that is useful even for pleasure paddling as well. The right of the public to access a navigatable stream is given to us by the Texas Constitution. So us Houstonians have a right to be able to navigate or paddle Buffalo Bayou. The water that flows through a navigatable stream is held in trust for the public by the state of Texas. Retaining walls require permits because they can cause a deflection of flow of the bayou, which may flood neighbors or damage public property. In one case, a large property owner in River Oaks, whose bank is likely affected by a large stormwater outfall, installed a controversial concrete block wall along several hundred feet of a bank in 2016, initially without a permit from the city of Houston. That washed away during Harvey, and the property owner has now rebuilt the eroded bank and installed a massive sheet metal wall that has alarmed residents across the bayou and elsewhere. It's also threatening a narrow strip of land that the Houston Parks Board had been keeping an eye on for a hike and bike trail. To make statutory law surrounding the bayous even more confusing, in 1937, the state of Texas passed legislation that set up the Harris County Flood Control District and gave it the right to make use of the bed and banks of the bayous. The state also made the Flood Control District responsible for the conservation of forests, but as Save Buffalo Bayou continues to mention, this is a responsibility the district routinely ignores. Under the River and Harbors Act, the Corps is also responsible for regulating any construction in or on the bayou. The Rivers and Harbors Act of 1899 is a federal resource law that is in interest to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. It prohibits the construction of any bridge, dam, or causeway over a navigable waterway without Congress approval. Dredging is destructive to a stream's ecosystem. It can even cause more flooding, creating a need for continuous maintenance and more dredging. I could discuss the environmental issues surrounding the Buffalo Bayou for hours, but for the purpose of this presentation, I have decided to review some of the phony arguments for bulldozing the bayou and what's actually going on ecologically and environmentally. This section specifically focuses on one of the most recent and ongoing projects that will be harmful to the natural Buffalo Bayou, the previously mentioned Memorial Park Demonstration Project. One argument that lobbyists have made for this project is that it will improve water quality. This is simply not true. In fact, the permit application from the Harris County Flood Control District to the Army Corps of Engineers makes it clear that this project will not improve water quality. Sediment contributed from this area will likely increase due to construction and the removal of vegetation from the banks. Removal of trees, plants, and the living soil from the banks will destroy the bayou's natural ability to improve water quality. Another argument made in favor of the project is that the bayou is whipping around, slumping in different directions, so it must be trying to change course, which would be dangerous for the population. The truth is, over the course of this 18,000-year-old bayou's life, the pattern and geography of it has minimal changes. Even the shifting back and forth is pretty normal for rivers to move. This is a part of their growth. The bayou has room to move, and we should let it because dynamic rivers are more biologically diverse. Finally, a heavily relied upon argument by lobbyists has been that all forests and nature that is destroyed during construction will all grow back. The wildlife will eventually return and the ecological system will be better than before. There is simply no scientific evidence for these claims. The plan they are proposing would take a natural bayou, which is an entire ecosystem, and turn it into a lifeless landscape ditch for a construction stage. Even if the bayou doesn't wipe it out, it will never be the same. Save Buffalo Bayou says that it's obvious they don't want it to be the same, otherwise they wouldn't be trying to wipe it out in the first place. They estimate it would take 50 to 100 years for a completely planted forest to grow back in this area, if ever. This is some of the last, closest thing to wilderness we have in the middle of our city of Houston. We need to honor and protect this historic natural area.